Real trash girl shit. Ah. These are cold open. Yeah. For you, how about that last Monday? It wasn't a bit. Now, I know many of you have had questions. Many of you have been so kind and wonderful and supportive, and thank you so much. I mean, genuinely awesome. And like I said, a lot of questions, some of them a bit rude. Now, I'm sure over time, as we get used to things together, many questions will be answered. But I've got one of my own before we go forward. YouTube, when are my tits not allowed? When aren't my tits allowed? Now that they're in a bra? I don't know how it works. If I'd have taken my shirt off before, it would have been... Have I got to be on the HRT for a set amount of time or not? I don't know why I'm asking you, you won't know. It's just I really want to get my tits out. On January 14th, an interesting thing happened. GameStop's stock suddenly surged by 27% in one day, exploding in value at a rate one could only call hilarious. This happened because the economy is bullshit and doesn't really exist and nothing is real. You see, a bunch of predatory hedge fund managers believed GameStop was on the path toward failure and salivated at the loss of jobs because they could profit from it by short-selling company stock. Short-selling is when you don't buy shares in a company but borrow them from a broker. The investor borrows shares in a company they think is overpriced and sells those borrowed shares at the current market price. When the market price falls, the investor buys back the shares at a much lower price and returns the borrowed ones, netting themselves a tidy profit into the bargain. Now, a few of you may be wondering how something this reckless and arcane works or is even allowed. It's gambling, basically. It's people betting that a given value will go up or down. It's gambling, but with thousands of human livelihoods on the line. These ghoulish investors began grabbing and selling shares in the retailer, planning to sell them when it collapsed. However, while capitalists know how to hoard wealth, they do not know the internet. So it is that a subreddit named Wall Street Bets drove the value of GameStop sky high, using apps such as Robinhood to buy up as much stock as they could and drive the price up rather than down. Turns out, that is the opposite of what the short sellers wanted to happen. In the course of a handful of days, GameStop went from sub $20 a share to hundreds, climbing to $469 on Thursday and still trading around $300 at the time of talking. As you might imagine, the gaggle of hedge fund managers who bet on GameStop's price dropping were fucked. These wolves of Wall Street, humiliated and stripped of billions by Redditors with names like Thick Dad's Club and Potato in My Ass. Investors pulled their resources but were fought back. They tried to find other ways to claw back their cash, so more companies saw their stocks rise. Would-be short sellers found their ill-gotten gains turn to well-deserved shit all week long, the shits. Short selling is one of the many ways a handful of incredibly wealthy predators manipulate all of our money in ways that enrich them at our expense. There are, in fact, more ways to become incredibly rich than there are incredibly rich people. But despite these numerous methods, most of them involve already being incredibly rich. One of the methods is to simply be rich. If you have $100 million, you are just given an additional $250,000 per year. Enough for anyone to live like a pompous duke. Imagine that. You already have more than you or your family will ever need for generations. And for the job of being that rich, you're given an annual salary double that of an actual fucking doctor's. The economy is bullshit. Now, this past week has been rather nightmarish for the multimillionaires and billionaires who steer our economy as if they're experts and not pasty little brats who inherited most of their wealth. However, in America, while 400,000 plus deaths are acceptable, a handful of incredibly wealthy men losing their wealth just couldn't be countenanced. The economy has been manipulated and exploited by the mega rich for decades, but once regular people found a way to game the very same system, the great financial institutions of this nation did all it could to stop the money trickling down. Now, I do want to say that the whole Wall Street bet stonk thing was not a populist uprising, especially considering a lot of the people who instigated this already had a shit ton of cash to do so. But there were people, especially once this blew up, who were looking for a payday, who need and deserve one, and regardless, it's the fallout of the affair that interests me as your humble Jimquisition host. In fact, funnily enough, while this might be the least video game related video we've done, being more adjacent to the industry rather than directly part of it, I did notice that this episode didn't have to be all that different from the average Jimquisition episode. If you just replace bankers and hedge fund managers with AAA publishers, you'll find out what we've been saying here all along. Bullshit ain't born in a bubble, and the whole system is about more than just games. The elites begged for bailouts almost immediately and worked to pool their resources and avoid the consequences of being reckless and irresponsible with their money like they say poor people are. In a move that disgusted almost everyone except the hedge fund scum, Robinhood imposed strict limits on trades, citing market volatility. Market volatility was fine when it was used by billionaires to become bigger billionaires. Once the stock market became easier to invest in for the rest of us, however, it was only a matter of time before something like this happened, and those in charge found a way to stop it. This is because the economy is bullshit. I mean, Jesus Christ, it's like the American Constitution. It only worked because some people who aren't us agreed it would work. And the moment someone decided it wouldn't, nobody could stop them. Nothing is real. Nothing is real. Much has been made of the Wall Street bets group that kicked all this off, and those who joined the fray once the stock market officially became the stonk market. Some say they're all just a bunch of idiot racist Redditors ruining things for fun. Others say they're the poor huddled masses who just want their cut. There is no way that by now there isn't a mix of privileged pricks doing it for a laugh, and those who just want some fucking money after over a year of sickness, civil unrest and financial collapse. The brokerages are right now trying to drive the value of these shares back down and screw over those holding onto them, but many have refused to sell their declining shares and give the hedge funds what they want, claiming that even if they lose everything they put into GameStop, it doesn't matter, because they're already too poor for it to make them poorer. And I don't know how many of them were being sincere, it's the internet, but they're literally describing millions of people in the country, those for whom this nation has given nothing and taken practically everything. They do in fact sound exactly like people who have become so poor they might as well gamble it. That's how casinos work. And honestly, outside of anything else, the fact that some of these wealth-hoarding fucks felt like how they've made other people feel, if only for a day or two, is something I think is a good thing. Petty? Vengeful? Yeah, but if anyone deserves it, it's them. Anyway, let's stonk! S-T-O-N-K. Let's stonk to the rhythm of the honky tonk. Stick a red nose on your conch. I thought about the people who gamble with everything because they have nothing, while seeing some memes comparing what's going on right now in the stock market with great financial crashes of the past, such as the Depression of the 1920s or the massive crash we had in 2008. And a lot of these memes point out how people kind of don't care about the stock market crashing. I remember the 2008 crash. I remember the panic and the fear and the overwhelming sense of loss. Not for the mega rich, of course. They caused the crash by doing to the housing market what we see them trying to do here, what they've been doing before and after 2008, without facing any consequences for the millions of lives they've ruined. In 2021, I've seen very few people panic, except for the ones whose livelihoods is doing all this shit. Most of us are either joining in the stonk rush, pointing and laughing, or debating the ethics of the situation. So many people aren't worried about losing their homes this time. They're not worried they won't have an economic future. They're not scared that at the end of this they'll have no money left. Because the major difference between 2008 and 2021 is that people have nothing left to fucking lose. What can you hold over these people's heads now? That they can't pay rent? That they can't afford food? Of course a bunch of common people are more than happy to watch the economic system crash and burn. The economy is bullshit. It was bullshit in 2008 when some men could just destroy the fucking world and get away with it. Free to do it again and again and again and again. The cost of living goes up and wages stay the same. A virus rampages unchecked through the allegedly free world because those in charge were too greedy and too cheap to protect us. Families have seen their savings disappear while Jeff Bezos is handed $2,000 a literal second, and the government debates giving everyone else just $2,000 to last a fucking year. Yeah, you know what? It's hardly any wonder people don't fucking care if the economy crashes anymore. I mean, it's not our economy, is it? It never was. Why should we fucking care? It has become crystal fucking clear by now that whether the country does well or does poorly, the country does nothing with our benefit in mind. It's like a AAA video game publisher. Billionaires stay billionaires even while the world around them collapses and hundreds of thousands die. Banks and casinos and hedge funds and brokers are bailed out with government money whenever they beg for their handouts, on top of the subsidies and tax breaks they already have. But stopping ordinary families starving with a pittance of a check is too much like socialism. And you should just hear the way they talk about you, how you will only be reckless with the money and waste it, rather than all these super smart billionaires who, oh, they use theirs to gamble with human lives. Just remember, the $2,000 checks that Biden is now predictably hemming and hawing over giving you, they're not even for you if you get them. They're not called "Don't Die Please" checks. They're called stimulus checks. The money you need to survive isn't being given to you for your survival. It's just to buy shit with, to give it right back to the economy. Even though most of you will need to give it to your fucking landlords. Because even though it's bullshit, the economy is what we're all born to serve. Regardless of what anyone thinks of anyone involved in the stonk war, whatever one thinks of Wall Street bets, one fact is absolutely clear. Apps like Robinhood were not designed to get you rich. They were designed to do what economic institutions of any kind exist to do: swindle money out of most of you and enrich a handful. Before this recent story, you could find so many articles about how people lost their money on apps like Robinhood. Ordinary people who are invited to play the stock market on their phones with a little experience and very little in the way of education or safeguards on the app's part. While people have made money off Robinhood, many more have become completely destitute, ruined by dabbling in a confusing and arbitrary system that relies entirely on gambling. The stock market is a casino, and Robinhood is little more than a gambling app that takes your money and gives it directly to corporations. Oh, like a gambling app. Robinhood had no protection for those people. It had no problems with volatility and consequences and the loss of money. Not until people who could afford to lose money started losing money, then, suddenly, Robinhood restricts purchases, stops people buying GameStop stock, and other apps follow suit. They just locked people out of the free market. The free market. I apologize so much if any of you thought the free market was an actual thing. It never has been. Basically, the moment the economy became something everybody could potentially profit from, the economy's doors closed one after another. And as this viral tweet from some random stranger points out, this comes after a lifetime of the rich telling the poor they should just invest their money. Well, people invested, and they learned a lesson some of us already knew. Billionaires told you that you should just invest your money because it's something they thought you'd never be able to do. They thought you had been so robbed of upward mobility, so bereft of a future, that you'd never be in a position to challenge their dominance. So they told you to invest. They told you to save. They told you to buy houses. That's a sick joke. They told you to do all the smart things that they were only able to do because they had a fortune of family wealth backing them up, and every ladder they climbed has been yanked up violently behind them. They took billions upon billions out of the precious economy and hoarded it, and used the resulting poverty they inflicted as proof that everyone else is too stupid and greedy to handle their own money. The entire thing is a grift. It's open theft on a worldwide scale, and it's actually killing the world. What many people learn this week is something many of us have been saying for a long time, and what I've said a few times here already. The economy is bullshit. The structures around it are bullshit. And the idea that any of the rewards of capitalism are yours for the taking is total and complete fucking bullshit. What we've seen is a clear case of the haves doing all they can to ensure the have-nots remain without. Because they can't keep their global grift going without everybody knowing their little place in the world. The great lie of capitalism is that your labour will earn you capital. The grim truth is that your labour is the capital. If you don't have money, your only contribution to the economy is your body, which you have to sell in order to pay at least some of your rent if you're lucky, often to the first bidder for well below your body's value. Capitalism doesn't work without many people selling their labour for a pittance and generating vast amounts of cash for corporate executives, who then work to ensure nobody else will ever see that money again. It doesn't work without a great lie convincing everyone they can be rich as well if they just work hard. It doesn't work without forcing millions of people into jobs they hate, into lives that exhaust and demoralise them every single day under literal threat of death. That is what it is. You have to earn your living after all, unless you're so rich you don't have to earn a goddamn thing. You were invited to play with the stock market not because they figured you'd all get rich, but because they knew they could make many of you poorer. Like any casino, the working class were let in to spend their money on hope and a desperate last bid not to lose a home. And like any casino, the house always wins, even if it has to kick all the pores out again. If everybody was rich, none of us could be coerced into making rich people rich. This is why the game is rigged, and why, if you start winning, they can always accuse you of cheating and boot you out. Yes, cheating. By playing the game exactly how all those other fuckers have been playing the game. Just better. They were playing the game better. Capitalism is free to those who can afford it, very expensive to those who can't. And now you know what happens when people try to mess with that. Now you see what the elite class really prioritizes and cares about, and just how low they will go to stay in their high towers. Anyway, this is why Cyberpunk 2077 was buggy.
Fucking good though, weren't they? I mean, I had a head start, but fucking hell. What's that, dear viewer? Oh no, did we already start an outro? Oh yeah, I talked about it. We might need to just turn this bit into a montage. You see, what's happened is I've gone from nervous last week to giddy now. It's not a time for giddy, actually. If anyone thought the Jimquisition would get less awkward. Oh no. Do you remember when, like, all those idiots were chanting "Stop the Steal"? Maybe we should have been chanting that at Wall Street instead of American democracy. God, if only there was some sort of movement for Wall Street that we could have taken seriously. I have no idea what that could look like. But I'm sure it'll occupy my mind. Thank God for me.